Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams here. Bob Stewart all the way over there. Bob, Happy New Year.
Oh, you're trying to make me feel bad? You went on this whole rant before we came on about how it's been a whole week. I haven't wished you a Happy New Year. Chad, Happy New Year, man.
Thank you, Bob. It's not only that you hadn't wished me a Happy New Year in a whole week via text, email, even social media. You wished our guest a Happy New Year and didn't even think twice about me.
I just wanted to make sure you knew where you rank on the...
Clearly, I know where I rank, and it gets lower and lower every day. Audience, Happy New Year. This is the first recording of 2026 for us. It'll probably drop somewhere in the early weeks of January as Dave is waiting on us. Yet, folks, we want to wish you a very happy, very healthy, very safe New Year. Yet, Bob, according to our guest today, Happy New Year might be the wrong expression.
We're going to go with Hopi New Year, and we'll explain why that is here in a few minutes, I think.
Well, then let's just get right to it and bring to the call your favorite, my favorite facilitator in the arguments of Bob and Chad Stewart that are going on right now. I guess that would be Bob Stewart, Chad Hyams, as we mix my names. That's my middle name is your last name. It messes me up all the time with that one.
Know that? Are you serious?
Yes, you did. You did know that.
I've forgotten that. I've known that so long. I've forgotten that.
Jen, again, you see what I have to put up with here? Jen, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast.
Thanks for having me. I feel like you guys could just keep going and I can sit here and smile and not have to do anything.
Jen, you sound like many of our audience members who just sit there and smile and they listen to the podcast, not for the facts, not for the value we bring, just because Bob and Chad are going to give each other a hard time
but there's a ton of value in smiling. So I disagree with you there.
I love that. We're done. There's a ton of value. Jen's dropped great value. We're out of here for no. Jen, here on the Win, Make, Give podcast, we do not read bios, and I have a beautiful one written by ChatGPT for you. We don't read it. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience however you see fit?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I much prefer when other people introduce me.
We like to throw the curveball here. We want to know, how do you describe yourself? Not how do you sit down and for hours think about how you want to perfectly craft the message everybody else hears, right?
Yeah. So obviously my name's Jen Fisher. I guess that's probably a key fact. I would describe myself as, especially for today, as a hope dealer, as somebody who deals in hope and possibilities. I'm also a wife, a daughter, a caregiver for my mother who has Alzheimer's disease. I am the CEO and founder of the Wellbeing Team, and I previously was the first Chief Wellbeing Officer at Deloitte. I'm a dog mom and a cancer survivor, and I live in Miami, Florida. How's that?
Oh, you're in Miami, Florida. I should go. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, so we'll meet up for coffee in between. Bob's in Seattle. He's nowhere near us.
That. Okay.
That's
question number one to you.
I mean, I got a lot of questions. I'm going to go somewhere maybe off the map a little bit, or maybe I would assume you got a book out. I assume we're not the first podcast you've been on, probably not the last. I know you host your own podcast, but I have a totally different question.
Okay.
What have you learned about yourself or maybe about humanity in helping take care of your mom?
Oof. Yeah. I love this question because I don't think that it's talked about enough.
Yeah. Like it gets me a little choked
up.
Oh,
he's crying already. Here we go.
My mom's into her 70s now and my grandma lived to 98. Like my mom's going to live probably beyond where she can take care of herself. And I don't know, like so many of us are going to deal with this. And then, as the baby boomers, anyway.
I think, especially for those that are caring for, or one day might be caring for someone that has a degenerative illness or an illness that, can't be cured, doesn't have a good ending. Acceptance, recognition of the fact that you can do everything you can to treat them and care for them with dignity, but no matter what you do, it can't prevent the illness from progressing. And so you just have to find a way to acceptance. I think also gratitude. And as cliche as it might sound, that this is the most important work of life, is caring for somebody that can no longer care for themselves in the way that they used to. And we don't, I think, especially in the US and in certain cultures, we view aging as something, to be hidden or something that's bad. And we certainly don't view caregiving in the way that we should. And so I think I have a lot of um, recognition and passion for that now, having this experience. And then the last thing I would say about it is probably patience. I think in my younger years, I was never very patient with elderly people. For example, like getting on and off of airplanes. Recently, I was on an airplane and I was sitting next to an elderly couple and I was in the window seat. And I think my first thought, maybe 5 years ago would have been like, oh my God, when we land, it's going to take me forever to get off of this airplane. But instead, I was like, oh, wow, let me talk to these people and find out their life story and see what's going on with them and help them as they get off of the airplane. And so I think there's just, I look at aging and elderly humans differently, having had that experience. So that was a long answer, but
No,
I've learned a lot.
I didn't even really consider it until I asked the question and you were answering it, that like in many ways what you're going through with this terminal diagnosis is the opposite of hope. Like in so many ways, right? You're like, there's not a lot of hope. And so you got to find these other things inside of it to push you along.
There's hope in small moments, right? Yeah, there's
Okay.
hope in the things that you can do and where you can take action. So I think that's the thing about hope is we often think of hope as something that is big and life changing, but most of the time, especially when we're struggling and we turn to hope, it happens in the small moments. And so that's been a big influence on me for sure.
Okay, so let's dive into hope. You keep throwing the word around, and everybody's like, "Okay, guys,
Happy New Year!"
Yeah, right, and we get it. Jen Fisher is here as the author. Hope is the strategy.
Which, by the way, real quick, Chad, I know you maybe thought
what I'm going to say, right?
I've never heard it that way. I've always heard it the opposite, Jen, and maybe that's part of the genius of the book title, right? Is like I actually Googled hope isn't a strategy, and there's a whole bunch of people that claim that, and so I'm fascinated just by the title you chose to begin with, because I think a lot of us have been told over the years that's not the case.
All right, before you get into that, Jen, since Bob, again, steals my questions, cuts me off all the time, it's our favorite things to do around here. I wanted to let everybody know you can find this book anywhere you buy books, right? You can find Hope is the Strategy, Jen Fisher. It's not hard to spell that. You can also go to Jen's website, which is jen-fisher.com. So you can find her online and you can find the book everywhere. I was going to say, just as Bob just did, you're going to have to change my whole mindset, because coming into this, I don't know how many times a week I say to people, hope is not a strategy. And here you've given us a book that says hope is the strategy. So take two non-believers. We've been taught in our stop hoping, go take action. What do you mean? And teach us about how hope actually is the strategy based on what you've written.
Yeah. And so the title was very intentionally decided to push up against kind of this old adage of hope is not the strategy. And so what I would say to that is no disrespect, but saying hope is not the strategy represents just a fundamental misunderstanding of what hope is and what hope theory is. And that's not your fault. I mean, most of us weren't taught hope theory. And those of us that know it or believe it, found it probably by accident or in a dark time of need. But once you understand hope theory, and I'll explain it to you. So hope theory.
By the way, Chad and I are both viciously Googling hope theory right now, I think.
So C.R. Snyder is kind of the godfather of hope theory. And he's the one that started the research and the science behind hope. And what he says and what the research says and why hope is the strategy. I'm not saying it's the only strategy, but I'm saying hope is the strategy, is because hope actually requires action. Hope requires you to do something. Most people believe that wishful thinking is hope. Wishful thinking and hope are two very different things. Hope requires you to have a goal, to identify multiple pathways or ways in which you can reach that goal, not just one way, but multiple ways, and then understand and identify your ability to actually take action and reach that goal. And so you can't just say, I'm going to win the lottery and kick back up on the couch, put your feet up on the table and and win the lottery, right? I mean, if you do, that's just kind of dumb luck. But I think what it is that most people think of hope as something that's soft, that it's just like this wishful, whimsical thinking, but that's not what hope theory really is. And so what I talk about from a life perspective and a workplace perspective is, especially in a time of great uncertainty, of a time of great disruption, of a time of great transformation, whether it's AI or otherwise inside of our organizations, if you're a leader that is rolling out a transformation or a brand new strategy, and people don't believe, they can't see themselves, they don't understand the goal, the pathway, their ability to do something related to your strategy, if they don't believe that tomorrow can be better than today as a result of your strategy, good luck. Right? People have to believe, they have to have hope. Otherwise, they're never going to get on board, because without hope, they're just kind of like, okay, like, why do I care? Why do I? This is just, here we go again. And I think that that's why we're seeing so much disengagement in the workplace, and we're seeing things like quiet quitting and quiet fight. All these buzzwords is because it's an absence of hope in our workplaces. People don't believe that things are going to get better for them. And so that's why I believe that hope is a strategy. And that's why I believe it's actually one of the most important leadership skill sets, because we don't have a lot of leaders right now that are communicating messages of hope. As a matter of fact, I think we're communicating in many ways the exact opposite, and people feel it.
All right. So well-being or well-wishing, right? I think that is a great, because that to me is the definition of what I've always really considered when people say hope isn't a strategy. It's because it means sitting on the sofa, buying the lottery ticket and saying, well, I'm hoping I win. That's just wishing, right? That something would happen. And you've switched the belief and the meaning. How do we get people to have hope if it's a leadership strategy that we're putting into place? How do I give Bob hope for a better day, a better tomorrow, that this will be the thing that gets him to his goal, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's multiple ways, and I go deep into this in the book. But one of the ways, and this might sound a little bit trite, but it's actually not. There's been tons and tons of research related to language and how we communicate with one another, especially within our organizations. And so, as leaders, because we're taught that hope is not a strategy, we're also taught things like, oh, make sure you tell them that's not the way we do things here. Or we've tried that before and it didn't work, so we're not going to try it again. Right? We come at it from the perspective of, we're being the responsible adult in the room. We're being the responsible leader. So we're just going to tell them that their ideas aren't going to work, or that we don't do things like that. Here, that's not the way it's done here. And those are what I call hope killers, right? The language that we choose to use with each other in our personal lives, but especially in our work lives, basically tell people like, hey, on one hand, we want you to be innovative. We want you to come up with new ideas and things that we've never tried before. Then people do that, and you sit across the table and you're like, yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that here. We've tried that before. That doesn't work. That's not the way we do things before. So a lot of it comes from our language and the way that we show up and the way that we choose to communicate with each other. And again, I've fallen in, I mean, this is not a judgment of any single person. This whole book was written from my own experiences and things that I thought that I was doing right as a leader, or told that I was doing right as a leader, and then come to find that, I was inadvertently killing hope or not creating a hopeful workplace. And I think one of the things that I say to skeptics or to leaders is, when they're like, really, Jen, do you really think that leaders are going to buy into this whole hopeful thing? Having this whole hope thing. And I say, well, I don't know. Would you want to be a leader of a hopeful organization or a hopeless organization? And that tends to kind of perk people's ears up and say, like, oh, wait a minute, I'd much rather be part of a hopeful organization. And so what does that actually mean? And what does that look like? But a lot of it is this very simple, formula that C.R. Snyder came up with, helping people identify their goals, their pathways, and their own personal agency towards a better future is what creates hope. And it can be done in really small ways, and it can be done in really big ways.
You came from Deloitte, and I have some experience with the big four, big five, or however many there are these days. And they have, I know in those worlds, like from a work perspective, very clear pathways. And that was one of the words you just said, helping people identify goals and pathways. Like, and again, this is like on the accounting side of those businesses.
Yeah.
Where they come in and they're a first year, and then they get here, and then they get to manager and senior manager. And then there's like a very clear ladder, I guess, inside of the organization. Is there any, like, do we need a clear pathway for growth, for earning potential? Like, does my organization need to have clear paths like that for people, joining to have hope that one day they make more money or they take on more responsibility, or like, does that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that matters. I think that that's important to people to know that, that the work that they're doing matters, and that, and that there is potential for future growth here, right? I mean, if you were stuck in a job where you didn't know, or you were told, or you didn't understand what the pathway was, or the future potential for growth is, you would just become disengaged and kind of stagnant. But I think a lot of where hope comes from is, I think that that's an important piece of the puzzle. It's probably less about that, and it's much more relational, right? It's like, what is, what are my relationships like with my leaders? Do I feel like I am known, I'm supported, people understand me, the work that I'm doing matters, I'm valued here, I think is what, drives hope. And so I think it's much more relational than it is, I think, yes, having a direct pathway for growth and earning potential is certainly important for a lot of people, but we also know that, a lot of people would, take less money to work in an organization where they felt like they mattered to somebody, or they felt like, they were valued, and the work that they were doing is valued. And I think a lot of that is actually missing.
Is that
Jen,
true?
Sorry.
There's people out there that would take less money to feel valued?
That's what the research says. Now, I think that
Who are these people?
You have to temper that, right? I mean, they have to be people that, I think it just depends, right? Like, are you, if you, it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you can't make ends meet, you're not going to be, like saying, oh, I'll take less money to know that I matter, right? But I think once you get to a certain level of comfort within what money you're making and how you're living your life, but then there's also, I mean, as humans and in the world we live in, we never think that what we do or how much we make is enough. And I talk about the idea of enoughness in the book, right? And just kind of the path that takes us down if we never believe, that how much money we make or what we do or who we are is enough.
Bob, we work in an industry that we see movement happen every day. We see people moving from one company to another company, one organization to another organization. And yet, you can name easily for me right now 5 people that even if someone came and gave them a better offer, they wouldn't leave.
Yeah.
Right? Because they feel the value.
You said me. I took that, by the way, as just a small compliment that Ben Kinney underpays me. That's what I heard out of that. But you're right. Like, they couldn't come and pry me out of here at this point with twice the amount of money that I make, because my leader is somebody that gives me hope. Like, I got a lot of hope. Like where we're headed is where we're headed. And yeah. So
absolutely.
I think my work here is done. You guys
thank you very much again.
That's your own questions.
We could have stopped at 2 minutes and we can stop now at 20 minutes because you've hit your work being done both times. There's a lot of people out there. I think it's not as few as people will think. There are a lot of people out there, and everyone listening to this can name 5 people easily that would not leave their situation if they were offered a bigger financial situation somewhere else. Because in your world, for example, Bob, Ben Kinney is worth X amount of dollars right there. And if someone made you an offer financially, it would have to increase not only your income, the value you've put on him being in your world.
Yeah, I'd be like, does that offer come with the ability to bring my kids up once a quarter and open a bunch of really expensive baseball cards? Like, there's all these other things. Yeah, totally. Okay. All right. I stand corrected.
You used the term early in your introduction, Jen, and I might get it wrong. You called yourself like a Chief Wellbeing Officer. Did I catch that correctly?
You did, yes. Okay. That was my title at Deloitte, yes. That
was fascinating to me on that title. What is we've heard about, Chief Health Officer, right? Somebody who's there, whose job, this well-being is a lot more than just we're healthy physically. What does a well-being officer do, and how badly does every organization out there need someone to take on this job right away?
Every organization needs someone to take on this job right away, like yesterday. I think it is the missing foundation to everything that is potentially wrong with work life and kind of corporate life right now, because I talk about a concept that I came up with called the complete intelligence stack. And so we're all really, really, really obsessed with artificial intelligence right now. And that's fine. I'm not knocking on artificial
I'm not actually really here. I am artificial intelligence. Yeah.
So, but when I think of, the different types of intelligence that exist in our ecosystem, in our world, there is a concept that my collaborators, my business partners, and I have been working on called wellbeing intelligence. And it is really, it goes beyond the idea of, just having programs, tools, and resources, benefits for people to take advantage of if and when they have time, if and when they so desire. Those things are important. But the problem with that is that for too long, and I'm guilty of this too. For too long, we thought that hey, if we just, throw a couple meditation apps and, some gym memberships and these things at people for their well-being, but we still continue to overload them with work, we can check the box and say that we care about their well-being. We didn't really actually think about the fact that work itself was what was impacting people's well-being. And so the design of work, the flow of work, our relationships at work, all of these things that exist in our day-to-day work experience, we were like, yeah, we can just teach them how to meditate and all of this will go away.
To me, all I'm seeing in my head right now, by the way, sorry, Jen, is the tech companies Meta being like, let's put ping pong tables in the conference room. Right?
And that's just to keep you here so you work more.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's exactly, and so we kind of learned along the way that that didn't work. And so what wellbeing intelligence is really much more about how do you identify the factors within a workplace or within the way that work is designed that are negatively impacting people's well-being. And then how do you empower leaders and individuals within that organization to actually change those things. That's a really meta, high level definition. But the point is the complete intelligence stack. Wellbeing intelligence is at the bottom. It's the foundation to everything else. You move up from there and you have emotional intelligence, right? And so every organization has some learning and development program where the underpinning is emotional intelligence. We got really excited about emotional intelligence and it's really important. but you can't be emotionally intelligent if you're unwell. Like it just doesn't work, right? And then from there is human intelligence, which is actually the wisdom piece. Like, what is the wisdom that humans bring to the workplace, a problem, an issue? And then the top of the pyramid is artificial intelligence. And so that is, how are we using AI to actually amplify the best of humanity in what really matters to us? The problem that I see is that we've invested very little in well-being intelligence, because that's not programs, tools, and resources. And we're over investing, or we're investing really, really heavily in artificial intelligence. And the rest of the stuff in between is just mush. So this is a long way of saying that over time, I was in the role of Chief Wellbeing Officer for 10 years. And so we started at a very infantile place of like, hey, let's just define well-being. What does it mean for our workforce and what can they expect? Then we rolled out a whole bunch of tools and resources. Then we started embedding it across kind of the talent life cycle in terms of how did it show up in performance reviews? How did it show up in onboarding? How did it show up in different milestone promotions and things like that? And as I was getting ready to leave, quite honestly, is when we were starting to really evolve to say, like, how do we actually make well-being a leadership skill set in the same way that we believe operations, technology, accounting, all of these other skill sets that we've made a priority and we pay a lot of people money for, we've actually never taught them the skills that impact people's well-being, their own and others. And most of the time when our well-being is impacted in the workplace, it's because of somebody else's behavior or lack of behavior.
You know what?
Right?
I don't know why I'm thinking of this right now, but I feel like Costco does a really good job with their employee well-being. And they've got this one thing they do that I think saves everybody in the building a ton of headache, which is they will take a return on anything. Right. And like, if you've ever had to work at a customer service desk where somebody wants to return something, like,
and you have to say no.
Yeah. The well-being for you that day at work, it's just not right. People argue and blah, blah, blah. And then they go into the store and they're pissed off at the next employee that they see. And like that one small thing for them, which cost them hundreds of millions of dollars a year, likely, but it could be billions. But they have one of the
But does
happiest,
it really?
Yeah,
that's right.
No. Because it keeps their employees. They don't have to retrain their managers. They have like really high.
I think what you have highlighted is a perfect example of well-being intelligence, because they removed a barrier. They removed a huge barrier that was negatively impacting not only their employee experience, but their customer experience. So now everybody's happy. And it's funny that you bring up Costco, because my husband and I recently bought a refrigerator freezer at Costco, and we weren't smart enough to know that it was going to be way too big, and they delivered it and we're like, oh my god, this maximum extra deep refrigerator freezer like looks like a behemoth in our kitchen. And I'm like, oh, it's Costco, they return and my husband's like, there's no way they're going to return that. I'm like, oh, they're going to return it. And they did, no questions asked, returned it, exchanged it for a better one. And I mean, we are Costco loyalists because of that. And
so are we. Like, we buy,
they make their money.
If it's more expensive, but it's at Costco, a lot of times we'll just buy it at Costco.
100%.
It's the story with Nordstrom's where they took tires back from the woman,
tires
right?
back, yeah.
Because her husband said he got them at Nordstrom's because he just referred to the mall as Nordstrom's, even though he meant the car place that was in the parking lot at that same mall. The woman brought these tires into Nordstrom to return them, and they just said, you got it. And they called the car place themselves and said, how much do these cost so we can return them to her to return them to you? Well-being being the key.
By the way, my mother-in-law works at Nordstrom 30 years.
Yeah, right. Same thing, because we're identifying workplace barriers as opposed to trying to layer a meditation app on top of a stressed out employee that's like, thanks for the meditation app, but I don't actually have time to meditate.
Right. I got to deal with these 30 screaming customers in line trying to return their widget.
That is a great point. I don't know how many companies say, we're going to give you a gym membership or we're going to give you access to these apps. And it's like, I don't have time. And the last thing I want is that app when I do have a moment. I wish I could have more time with, or I hope I have more time to be with my family or to do the things I want to do. It's one of the things, again, I've not worked at Google, yet we hear the stories where they are expected to put X number of hours into a passion project. So they are focused on something that brings them energy, that gives them well-being. All right, we've been talking with Jen Fisher, Wellbeing Chief Wellbeing Officer. I love the title. Author of Hope is the Strategy, that you can get anywhere that you normally get books. Speaking of books, Jen, I want to put you on the spot. We see each other as we record. Our audience knows we use video to record, yet we don't share the video because, well, we don't want them to see Bob. And Bob and I will often comment on the backgrounds of our guests. You have behind you a beautiful bookshelf filled with books. We are big believers in readers and all of that stuff.
Wait, is that a shot at I need glasses? I'm getting to that age.
I'm wearing them as we talk, Bob.
Being a reader, not wearing readers. Sorry.
I'm wearing readers as we talk. By the way, Costco, like $4, 18 pairs. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to turn around. And other than Hope is the Strategy, which I see over your shoulder, what is the one book on that bookcase that you are recommending to our audience to either read or reread? This is coming to you from the Chief Wellness Operator or Wellbeing Operator. She's going to tell you the book she pulled off the shelf is
The Choice by Dr. Edith Edgar.
Okay. Bob's writing it down. It's on his reading list now.
Yeah, this book changed my life. And it is earmarked and highlighted and underlined. You guys can see it.
Don't look at that stuff. Oh, my dad taught me you respect a book. You don't break the spine. You don't write in them. You don't highlight.
No.
I have notebooks for that stuff. And when people take a paper book and the first thing they do is go like crack, I'm like, hurts me.
How do you open the book otherwise? Otherwise, the stupid book shuts on itself. What are you talking about?
Open a book without breaking the spine.
I don't know.
No, when somebody comes up to me with their book in my book in their hand with it highlighted and ragged and with Post-it notes hanging out of it, like that's awesome.
Like this thing lives with them. It lives with them. It doesn't just sit in their home.
No, Chad's like, no way.
Notebook to put the notes in. So I don't have to go through every book to find what really mattered.
I feel like I'm relearning a bunch about you today. Your middle name's Stewart. You don't like to write in your books. Like, okay.
No, and I like when my friends wish me Happy New Year on time. All right. Again, you can find jen-fisher.com. Hope is the Strategy. Jen, 1 minute on the clock. What's the last thought you want everyone to walk away from this episode with?
The last thought. So something, and I actually wrote about this yesterday in my newsletter, and I talk about this in the book. It's the concept of what happens through hope and what happens with hope. And so when you talk about what we were talking about, what happens through hope, hope is a catalyst. Hope is what actually makes people move and take action. When hope becomes embedded in your life or in your organization, the things that happen long term with hope are things like innovation and engagement and spontaneous collaboration, and all of the things that we talk about we want to happen within our organization happen with hope.
Love that. Bob started scribbling notes. I'm going to make things easier. I heard the word newsletter. How do I get it?
Yeah, it's Substack newsletter. So Jen Fisher, just Google Jen Fisher Substack, or if you're on Substack, just type in my name. The newsletter is called Thoughts on Being Well.
There you go. Bob is typing as we speak. Audience, go get it. Audience, get your copy of Hope is the Strategy. Go check out Jen on her website. Connect with her on one of the many ways that are out there. Jen, we really appreciate you taking the time and helping Bob and I work through some of our issues and find some well-being between the two of us.
So you're no longer going to say hope is not a strategy, right?
I will never say hope is not a strategy again. I will clarify that wishing is what is not a strategy, and that is probably what they are doing, unless they have a magic lamp or a little fairy trapped in a bottle somewhere.
Which they might, but yeah.
You never know. That would be really weird if they do. Jen, we appreciate you taking the time. Audience, welcome to 2026. We are going to bring you so much more value than we've done in the past because Bob and I are not stopping. Bob, you don't know this. Yet welcome to season 5. We're officially in season 5.
Wow. Chad, we've done hundreds of podcast episodes. What are we talking here? 500, 600?
At least I don't keep track anymore. We just
I thought I'd get tired of seeing you, if I'm being completely honest. And here we are 5 years later, and I'm still not tired of seeing you. That's good. Aww. This is good.
See how he made nice at the end, Jen? Audience, share the episode. Share Jen's message because it is a powerful one. Make sure you're subscribed so these come to you automatically. And until our next episode, as always, do good.